Guys, we are back with another episode today, and I'm very excited to do this one. I tried to replace the word nervous. I was talking about that this morning because, I met Ryan briefly. I want to say 2 years ago, you spoke at a Keller Williams event. And I remember I was like, that's the guy on the billboard. And I came up, I think I sent you a message that night. And then over the last 2 years, obviously, we've been working hard, and you're a name that keeps coming up over and over again. And I can genuinely say it's all been positive. And then I saw the company Fellow when I was at the Keller Williams Family Reunion Conference. And then Mike Robertic connected us because he said, "Oh, yeah, Ryan Young started that." So from outside looking in, I just want to start by saying, one, thank you for showing up. And two, congrats on everything you built.
Well, thank you. It's been a journey, and it's fun to I don't talk about it much, so it's fun to kind of, just you're so in the trenches building, you don't normally actually talk about the journey. So excited to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so a lot of people may not realize this, but kind of talk us through your timeline of when you actually got started in real estate and then how that role has shifted. Because I'm assuming you didn't just start saying, I'm going to run a giant team, do all the software, and probably,
Yeah,
organize every hour of your day.
it my career has been what I would consider uh inflection point after inflection point of like these iterations of what I'm currently working on, and always I would say wanting more. And you mentioned you were genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious. And so it's just these constant, I don't want to say pivots, because it's always these, you know, these stepping stones, these iterations to just bigger things. And so, joined the real estate side of things. My parents back in 2009 got licensed, started building the team in probably 2012, 13. Started in 16, starting to do some creative messaging around, get a cash offer on your home, guaranteed sale, etc. Started buying homes really aggressively in 2019. I started a company called Flash House, which once again was kind of a stepping stone of like, I was started the team. Then I wanted to start doing this like larger kind of marketing, uh, these larger marketing programs and messages, call to actions, USPs, etc., which then leaned into me buying homes, which then led me building software to making buying homes more efficient, which then led into me building software to actually protect my database, my real estate company's database, which then became Fellow, which now is, we launched in 22, which has become a massive company. But all of these little stepping stones along the journey, it's all it's all been very intentional, even though it's been somewhat unintentional in the roadmap.
So would you say that your effort has been intentional, but the vehicle that you were operating in business was maybe unknown until you did it? It kind of sounds like you chased like I heard that you like the messaging, right?
Yeah.
And so for people who don't know, you were running a residential real estate team mostly. And when you mentioned starting in 2019, that was mostly for off-market
Yeah.
deals. Okay.
Correct.
So was
And,
that a
and,
big
and
deal
and
for
it
you at that time?
supported what for me it was. Every business that I've spun off has always supported my core competency of my real estate team, right? So, one of the things I see a lot of entrepreneurs do that it might work for them, it's not been my style, is I always build something that makes my core competency better, makes it more efficient, drives more opportunities, makes it more revenue, etc. And then identify whatever that other thing I built, the supplemental thing I built, can that be a standalone? Meaning, if it's making my core business, my real estate company better, can it make other companies better, right? And so can we break that off, and can that be something that ultimately is its own product, is its own company, etc. And so what's nice about that is I get to, from an R&D perspective, I get to kind of like work in the entrepreneurship lab of like building ideas that ultimately I'm building for my own company, that if it works and there's success and then you can put scale behind it, all of a sudden you can scale it into its own thing. And that's really how Fellow came about.
So okay. This is something that came up. I was at a real estate conference this past weekend, and it was the first conference where I went to a year ago, and then came back a year later.
Love it. What
And what was very
conference?
interesting was what's that?
What conference was it?
It was called RubeCon. I think it would stand for Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. Think of like smaller scale, bigger pockets is probably the
Love
best
it.
way to put it.
Cool. I haven't heard
And
of it.
it was very interesting how many people I saw last year and saw this year. And it seemed like some people kind of went wide and sporadic. And I just kind of did the same thing. We added some, I would call it value adds, but not full redirects. So I'm curious from your perspective, how do you make sure it's not a shiny object, and how do you make sure it's a supplementary business like you were just mentioning there?
Well, I'll use an analogy that I reference a lot. Is and this is not a plug for Keller Williams, but my real estate team has been at Keller Williams for the past 15, 16 years, right? Um, it's just it's what I've known. Um, I have plenty of opportunities to move my real estate company to other brokerages where there would be financial benefits to doing so. But ultimately, like to me, that's a lateral movement in the grand scheme of things. And the lateral movement ultimately doesn't have enough upside for what I'm trying to build or what there's not enough opportunity in it besides a swing of a couple bucks year over year. Now, some people might look at it and say, but if you're talking about six figures, seven figures, but they don't understand ultimately what I'm looking to accomplish. I'm looking to build something bigger than that, something that from an IP perspective or proprietary that like I ultimately can control. And so I say this because I've always kind of used the analogy of like if me and another team that are the exact same size are driving down the highway and I just stay in my lane, right? Driving forward. And every time they switch brokerages, and even if they're moving laterally a little bit, okay, every time I'm creating more distance while I'm just staying in my lane and driving straight down. And so from the core, when I say building products and, businesses that ultimately impact my core competency, it's like I'm ultimately looking to, it's a growth hack essentially of saying, like I know that not only will this make me stronger as a business, it'll make me more profitable, it'll make me more defensible, it'll make me more sustainable, more predictable, whatever it may be. But I also know there's an opportunity of this actually being something much bigger than my existing business. I don't know. Do you know Kobe Socher?
So I've seen him a few times. I'm actually going to be meeting him on a panel, I think in May.
He's
So
a
follow him on
great
Instagram.
guy.
Seen a lot of his
He's a
stuff. Yeah.
great guy. There's a lot of similarities of like what he's doing with his acquisition company, which now is much bigger from a profitability standpoint than his real estate company, but it's still in the same vein. It still supports each other. They can still leverage same operational expenses. They get the benefit of the economy of scale. And so I just say that because like when I use the analogy of switching brokerages, nothing wrong with changing brokerages if you're not at a place where you feel like it's aligned with your vision or business model, etc. It's not to discredit people that change brokerages. It's just for me, the upside isn't big enough. Like when someone pitches me about changing brokerages, it's like it's so short term on what they're pitching me on what the actual upside is. It's not that exciting. It's not that attractive. So then it just becomes a distraction. And it's like, so I have to actually, there's an opportunity cost for what you're presenting to me is what the opportunity, what the financial gain is. But then there's the whole like, you got to change infrastructure. You got to change from a branding and all these other things. To me, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I think a lot of times, a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, especially in our industry, I think they think a little bit too short-sighted and small. And like they're looking for like if I move over to brokerages, this is going to give me a lift because of the recruiting benefit or the whatever it may be. Once again, no judgment. For me, it's just not the game I'm playing.
And it kind of seems like in the movie Office Space when he's running late to work and he just keeps switching lanes, and then traffic stops, and then traffic
Oh,
stops, and then all the other cars just
100%.
keep.
What a
Yeah.
great scene, by the way. That is like I feel like that's the like that is exactly right. It's like stay in your lane. They're all going to get to the same place. The only person that's losing, no one ever times switching lanes perfectly, right? Like stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane.
And it also sounds like too. it's the same if someone's pitching the same pitch, which is join my brokerage, it's a different product to someone at your size, right? Because to that smaller agent or newer agent, that actually may be like the right lane for them to jump into. Whereas, like right now, so just for people who don't know, what are all of your businesses and how do they all kind of touch each other?
Yeah, so I'd say right now, predominantly, and I've consolidated a lot,
Oh,
but
I'm freezing.
predominantly,
This is the first time I'm putting a sweatshirt on mid podcast, but continue.
I like it. A little chilly in the studio.
Oh, it
Uh,
is. Yeah.
it keeps you like very alert, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
I know.
so is this like a brand? Is this like a brand deal that you have going on right now?
Oh,
Like,
sorry. No, yeah. Block,
are,
block, block. No, it's just a roofing company. He throws
are
me a
you
lot of words.
plugging? I like, dude, I like it. Try, I'll go get a like a young team. Now,
Here we go. Kip, shout out. You're getting a little
yeah.
shout out
What's
today.
up, Kip? What's Kip's last name?
Yoke.
Kip Yoke, guys. Renew Home, Kip Yoke. Check him out.
Hey, there we
Um,
go.
they're I have two core businesses right now, and it's funny because Fellow has gotten so big that I would have to say like that is my business. But you know, the Young Team, my real estate company, is a phenomenal team. It's a phenomenal organization. We sell about 500 homes a year. It's very, I would say, organic in growth. It's very unintentional. Um, we our average the tenure of our agent is like 6 years, so it's like we don't see a lot of turnover. We just have great age. You know, we have some agents on our team last year that sold 30 plus million, almost 35 million in real estate. So it's like we know how to develop agents, we know how to retain agents, we know how to provide value to agents, which is phenomenal. And then also I have Fellow, which is a software company. We work with about 20,000 agents all over the country. We've scaled that to a really nice software business. We're now going in the mortgage industry. We work with large enterprise clients like realtor.com and Movoto. And so like now we're working with like big companies as well. And then, you know, I still own investment real estate. I still have some ancillary money coming in through different, you know, joint ventures and stuff like that. But from like truly as an operator, like my two core priorities right now are Fellow and the Young Team.
So I want to give you maybe it's a compliment question. I do want to let you know that we've actually had sales calls where when people are kind of explaining their software stack, like usually the call starts to manage their content and social media, then it
Sure.
kind of leads into CRM. I've actually had three people ask if we would manage Fellow as a service. So congrats that that's even happening.
I love it. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but then the question I wanted to ask is, what is a skill set that has worked really well for you in, let's say, the human real estate side and then the software? And then what would you say the biggest difference between succeeding in those two businesses are?
Good question. Um, Skill set. Uh, so I mean, this is not what like you know people ultimately. I think it's kind of cliche, but it's like literally like just grit, uh, tenacity, hunger. Like Fellows at a size where you can't outwork the scale. I mean, we got 120 employees. No, like if you're having a bad month, I can't just go in and change. I can't like individually impact the outcome at like the
Yeah,
way
you
I
can't
could have.
hustle through that.
You can't. It's like hard to hustle through that. But if everyone hustles, right? If everyone gets super scrappy, if everyone, you know, puts in the extra hours and pushes a little bit harder, that really does move the needle. So I think that's something that's extremely important on like how I both built the Young Team and Fellow is like it was literally just built on being super scrappy, super gritty, and like, you know, we bootstrapped it for a long time before we raised venture capital. And then once we raised venture capital, we were really proud of the fact that we've still been cash flow positive for the past 2 years, like some things that you don't really see in these high growth startup type of world. And the reason being is just because we don't take a dollar for granted. You know, we every dollar we invest, we expect for a return on that dollar. Like we hold our team members to the same accountability, even though they're not biological founders. We hold them to still the essentially the same work ethic extension. We expect them to care just as much as we do. And some people might say, well, that's unrealistic expectations, but we are very comfortable investing more time on on the hiring process, into talking to more people and sifting through the ones that look at it as, this is my employer, this is my job, I don't own this company, even though they have options and stuff like that. Our expectations are that you are going to outwork the other companies, the people at the other companies, not only because you believe ultimately in the mission and where we're going, but you absolutely love and you're obsessed with what we're growing and what we're building and who we're building with. And I see a lot of similarities of that on the young team as well. So I would say like that is probably like the core, like the DNA of like both companies is like, they're not part-time, they're not casual, they are intense, they are very high, they're very intentional. And to me that's just, I think that's an extension of just who I am.
What's a very unique hiring tip or maybe piece of advice you could give to others that are growing their business that's not the common tip you would hear?
uh so this is going to be a terrible piece of advice, but like, I am terrible at hiring, and so I have other people do it. Okay.
Maybe
uh
that's a tip. Yeah.
That's the tip, right? The tip is that like, if you're not good at doing it, have other people that do it. And the reason why I'm not good at doing it is because I'm a relational person, and I get more attached to the relationship than ultimately what the outcome I'm looking to drive is, and what the tendencies are, or the essentially the data points that would suggest that they would be able to create the output that we're looking for. I unfortunately look over that, and I look at relationship and prioritize and value relationship. It's why I'm a great salesperson. It's why, every company I've started was always started as me selling first before ultimately you bring in other salespeople. Um, but that to me is something that I've just learned is like, I am not great at hiring. I don't follow the process. It's become detrimental to ultimately, I can't say to people, well, it's okay because I'm the founder, I'm the CEO. I can skip the process. That's not okay. So it's like, then if I'm not willing to follow the process, then I need to bring someone in that is willing to follow the process. I can lay out the objectives. I can lay out I'll still have a conversation with the person. I can greenlight or validate, but ultimately I shouldn't be the one driving the process.
Yeah. No, that's a good tip. And yeah, I was curious because it seems like local or at least real estate, you can hire a team that you can like shake hands, you can do the coffee and everything like that. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume the fellow employees are all across the world at this point.
All across the world.
Yeah. So, in this whole process, I think one thing I've been curious of is like how do you keep organized, right? Because I'm assuming like so much decisions have to go through you, but tasks are obviously done by other parties. Like, what does a typical, let's say, Thursday from 9 to 5 look like for Ryan at this point?
Thursday from quote unquote 9 to 5 is, I'm speaking purely through the lens of fellow because it's like 95% of my week. What's so interesting is, and I don't know how I've conned my way into this position, but I'm the CEO of this company. We've got about 120 team members. We've got 20,000 users. Um, I don't have any direct reports. Okay.
Okay.
And I think I'm not a great people manager. And because of that, we want to insulate me from my weaknesses. And so ultimately, I don't have any direct reports. What I do is I float. I do a lot of floating. Like, my schedule today has been jam packed, call after call after call. Some of it is with new prospects, enterprise prospects in our sales team. Some of that is with our current customers. Some of that is what I would consider media relations. Like, I was on a webinar right before this and now doing a podcast. So I spend a lot of time doing, exposure type of PR type of stuff. I have investor relations. So we have investors, we've raised money. So I manage that. I spend a lot of time focusing on vision and where we're going. Um, so it's like one of those things that I kind of float a lot, and you'll see me bouncing into customer success and helping them when we're seeing some data points that we're not crazy about. Or then I jump over to the sales side, and we're going into mortgage now. So I'm working with our marketing team. And so it's like, what's so interesting and why I love what I do is like, I don't have like the same day every day. I kind of float and I kind of bounce around based on problems, based on ideas, based on opportunities. And it's really fun for me because I get to play into my strengths of being more of a vision guy, being more of a sales guy, being more relational, where I get to spend a lot of time with my team members. But ultimately, it's almost like I'm the uncle or the grandpa or the grandparents that like I can give the kids all the candy and like they love me, and then like they can go home to their parents and their parents have to put them to bed after you give them the candy, and it's like good luck. It's like I kind of get to bounce around and do a little bit of everything. Obviously I have to have a lot of hard conversations. I have to
Yeah.
have that's a piece of running a large company. But like I just when I say like I don't know how I con my way into this, I think we've just found like play into my strengths, and these are the things that I'm best at.
Yeah, so my chat GPT, we did this prompt where you basically have it roast you based off everything it knows about you, but then give a positive redirect. And
Yeah.
one of my positive redirects was once a week, have 3 hours blocked for nothing but vision building time. Is that something that you had to reintroduce, or is that something that when you look back at your career, you always had times to do that?
No, it's the thing I struggle with the most. There, here's the reason why I struggle with it. Um, I've always had imposter syndrome around being like the leader of the company and not actually being like an individual contributor. And so I always feel like during the weekdays, I can't carve out time just to think about things. I have to be doing something that impacts the profitability or the revenue growth or whatever it may be, the net retention revenue, all these different metrics that like are so important to us. And so that means that like when you look at my schedule, it's like 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, take a leak, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, like it's like one of those things that it's like I don't carve out these big blocks. And I'm normally in the weeds a lot. The reason why it's a challenge is I used to spend a lot of my weekends spending time on vision in where there wasn't distractions of customer calls and team member calls and stuff like that. Well, now I have two children, about to be a 4-year old and a 5-year old, and, my wife, Pam, who the weekends are for the family, and so it's like one of those things that it's like I used to have very uninterrupted, like really high concentration of like focused time to focus on vision and big strategy and like, and I loved it, right? Like I would write and I would, and I would just and I would go like deep into Google Docs and like just keep, idea after idea after idea. It's tough for me now, and I'm at a place where, and we're at a place with fellow, we're starting to bring on some leadership hires that are gonna insulate me even further from customers and from prospects and stuff like that, where I can where it's actually detrimental if I'm not focusing on vision and stuff like that. But it's something that I really struggle with is like I never felt like I was good enough. I deserve the right to just for 3 hours grab a cup of coffee on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. and just write stuff down. I felt like it wasn't a productive day if I wasn't going from call to call and individually touching, you know, whatever it may be, whatever that call was.
Have you heard of the concept? So I went out to Mastermind in Beverly Hills in December. It's called the Midwest Curse.
Mm-mm.
So this was Ty Lopez's event, if you're familiar with who he is.
Yep.
And I was just very interested. I was like, I need to see if this guy's legit or not. And it was about AI and social media. So I was like, worst case scenario, I meet some great people. So I get there, and within probably like 15 minutes of networking, some guy from LA is like, "You from Indiana or something?" And I was like, "What is he talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You sound like you work really hard." He's like, "When we talk numbers, you like have the money to hire staff, but you're not. And it seems like you just like the feeling of being needed and working all the time." And I'm like, "Geez, like punch to the heart." But what was interesting is they said like that's what will get most people to a certain point, but they actually have to like axe that to get to the next point. And so it's like that same hustle that like built all these things. And I'm still very new and struggling with the concept you said of like insulating yourself from what you're bad at. Like it does kind of feel like a con, right? Where it's like, oh, I have to like have someone else do this work, pay them, but I somehow profit still, and I'm supposed to stay further away from responsibility. Like it's
Right.
a hard
The
concept, but
leverage concept. Here's the thing. I have two responses to that. First off, if you like it, then F that person, right? Like, because ultimately what they're not asking you is, are you happy? Right?
yeah,
Like, I've seen Ty Lopez's house. like this big old double staircase like thing, like through social media and stuff like that. And it's like that guy obviously from a business perspective is doing what would appear as something right, but who knows? We live in a world where it's like
Yeah.
you have no idea, right? But ultimately, is he happy? Does he love what he does? Is he fulfilled? Is he waking up excited and inspired and going to bed exhausted because he's so, you know, he's so fulfilled and he can't like it's just been such a day of nonstop. Like, so my response to that is like one, do what makes you happy. Too many people, we live in a world where too many people are telling us how we need to do things, why we need to do things. And ultimately, the majority of those people have something to sell us, right? The majority of those people have an angle, a mastermind, a webinar, a live event, whatever it may be, right? And and to me, it's like if you love grinding and that's the Midwest mindset, then grind, man. Like I love grinding. I come from a culinary world. I cooked in a kitchen. I love feeling busy. I actually, while I can appreciate the logic behind like you're limiting your growth because you're actually grinding, to me, I don't know how happy I would be on days where I don't grind. I feel unfulfilled for some reason, whatever. That's just the way I am, right? And it doesn't mean that I can't build a big company. I'm building a very big company. Um, but on the flip side, if you want to build something bigger and you feel like you're not getting there and you want to get there, then I would agree with the concept of if you are standing in the way, if you are stunting your growth because you want to control everything, right? Now all of a sudden I would say you need to let go, you need to leverage, right? Like that's a totally different conversation than you love being in the thick of it, you love the hustle. Like I mentioned, I come from the culinary world. I used to be a chef, cooked
I
all
could
over.
tell with that egg flip on Instagram,
Yeah,
something's up.
it's like one of those things. Like used to be a chef. Some chefs just never want to get off the line. They never want to like from service from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. They love the rush. They love, it's like some just want to go own restaurants and they want to bounce around from restaurant to restaurant and they want to help conceptualize the meal, the menu, the plates, the design, the decor, whatever it may be. It's okay. There's no right or wrong. You don't define success by like, oh, this person owns 20 restaurants and this person's still cooking. Um, if they're happy, they're happy. And I think that's what's like totally misleading about social media and, the world we live in is everyone looks at a measuring stick of like how many views, how many follows, how many whatever, right? The cars I drive, whatever it is. And it's like a lot of those people aren't happy, And so it's like don't focus on what they have, focus on your happiness and what inspires you and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, because it is different. Like that is it's a very different mindset. They all grew up very differently. And it was like interesting because that conference it was tough. But then the recent one at St. Louis, like I went there and the guy I went with, I think we both acknowledged like, yeah, we did put in a lot more work and this was beneficial.
Right.
So it does kind of get you to that point where it's like, and I enjoyed it too,
And there
right? Like
might be a time, how old are you?
I just turned 27.
Just turned 27, right? There might be a time where your priorities change, right? My priorities have changed. I used to work every weekend and like when I was showing houses or I was going on appointments or whatever it may be. Um, Now I don't want to work weekends. I want to spend them with my family. I used to like to stay up late. Now I wake up really early because I like my time. I like quiet. I like, like priorities change. And so it's like, I would say, it's like the whole like if I knew now if I knew then what I know now, like what I'm starting to realize is that like and I'm getting very comfortable with it is like I'm 41 years old and like in 5 years 10 years from now I'm going to be different, and it's like so I'm not constantly looking at like where I am now or where I'm going. I'm just along for the ride, and it's like I don't have expectations. I'm not looking at other people that are my age or younger or older that are more successful. It's like I just love what I'm doing. I'm so energized by who I'm doing it with. And it's like, if everyone just did that, life will be good.
So the question I usually the question I usually end on is, what do you feel like you're currently figuring out? So that's the whole name of the podcast, and I think a lot of people could look at you and go, "Oh yeah, he's there." But in your exact moment, would you say that's what you're working on the most?
I literally, so like what's interesting is, so I started doing 75 hard January 1st and I just kind of kept it going. And there's a couple things after I did it for 90 days and then I basically, there's a couple things that I've like deviated from, like had a couple glasses of wine with my wife last weekend, like there, but I'm basically the core principles of, kind of this outdoor workout concept of like, for me has really been for the past almost 4 months now, me walking outside and listening to a podcast of something, right? And I'm really inspired. I never used to listen to podcasts, and some podcasts I listen to and I'm really inspired by, and some I'm like, it was okay, and my brain starts to float away, and it's like whatever. But what I'm working on right now is consistently trying to learn new things, and to really expand my my mind around all these different concepts in like macroeconomics, artificial intelligence, a lot of politics, like a lot of uh, a lot of entrepreneurship. Like I've been just kind of doing this organically, building on my own, like really just kind of like figuring it out. And I'm really right now at a place where I'm getting very excited and inspired by like all of these people that are, really, not even on paper or on social media successful, but like in the business world, in the macro world, really respected, you know. I'm really like focused on and inspired by like learning. And learning doesn't come with expectations. It's literally just input, 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 input every day, more inputs, more inputs, more inputs. And like I'm not taking a test after to say what did I retain. I'm not taking, I'm not like talking publicly about like and regurgitating all this stuff. I'm just taking in so much information that I was never doing 4 months ago or 3.5 months
Oh, you're
ago.
saying literally that recently you've started
I just
like,
this recently, just on like January 1st was like when this started. And it's like me walking outside for an hour every day. And it's like now I have my like go-to people that I listen to and I find consistency. I find consistently I enjoy their, podcast or webinar, whatever it may be versus others. This to me is a whole new thing. And so like I am learning so much about all of these things that I never really like. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I was an entrepreneur, but I didn't really know anything about, investing. And even though I was acquiring real estate, I was just kind of doing it in real time, didn't read a lot of books, didn't listen to a lot of podcasts. And I'm now just like really like just soaking up as much information as I can, and I really enjoy it. And it's really interesting. You think of like the compounding effect of doing this day over day. I've been doing it for 100 days. What does that look like after a year or 5 years? And it's something that I'm just really excited about is like I'm learning so much that I never really had any interest to learn, and now I've become like very obsessed with it. And like I don't know, it's my biggest focus right now. It's where I'm really at like in life, and it's what I'm really like just what I'm really into.
yeah, I did it at a different time. So a lot of people have listened to the podcast know that when COVID hit, I dropped out of college and was door dashing while I built my business, and I
Sure.
call that like my real college. I was never a book guy, never liked audiobooks or anything like that. And I think in the 2 or like just under 2 years I did it. I think it was like 37 audiobooks, and then that was when I found a lot of my podcasts. And still to this day, I've got my like rotating 3 to 4.
What are your
And
3 to 4?
now that it's back, Tim Ferriss show is a huge one. I'm a huge fan of him. There's one that I would suggest, and I hate that I don't know their name, but it's called the AI Driven Marketer. It's just these two guys that just kind of yap about all these different use cases that they're seeing across the country for how to like play with it and to test things out. So yeah,
Oh,
there's probably
that's
good for
cool.
you.
Hold on. I know Tim Ferriss. What's it called? The AI driven
He's
marketer.
the AI driven marketer, yeah. And the same way you said, some of those are dry where it's just like, like we do a lot with image generation already for like overlay and stuff. So there's some that are understimulating, but I still listen in case there's that one nugget. One that would be very probably foreign to a lot of Ohio people that I found early on was the Aubrey Marcus show. So he's the guy who started the company On It that like Joe Rogan affiliates with pretty heavily. And he's much more into what I would call the spiritual side of entrepreneurship, how to like get back into the vision mode. And
Interesting.
then let's see what would I give number four. Probably Chris Williamson, and like his are intense. So like those are
I
very like
literally just learned who he was like 3 days ago because I was watching the All In podcast and they had him on a thing in Austin. Um, and it was so interesting here. He's English or Australian or something.
British, yeah.
British, yeah. And so it's like one of those things that, good looking dude, friggin', he's on this stage and he's talking about, which to me, this is important to me. First of all, he starts talking about how, he's so genuinely curious and he gets to interview all these like scientists and psychiatrists and, he's going deep into psychology and all these different things. But he started talking about the investment he makes on the set and like, he has these like really like he's making significant investments to have this aesthetically pleasing podcast. So it's like funny because like 3 days ago I would have never known who that was. Now I
Yeah.
follow him on social. Like literally, I was listening to him. I'm like, this guy seems really interesting. He seems like really cool, but he's also seems like really like deep into like you know just spirituality and to psychology and all these different things. And like I once again, this is what I'm talking about of like under like how this expands. And like then all of a sudden I'm like, so now I'm following him and now I'm starting to listen to him. And like it's just crazy how it webs out.
Yeah, the muscle I would say that I've found very valuable, and I've gone down some deep like AI rabbit holes, is I have a true belief that in the next 10 years, probably one of the most profitable skill sets will be curiosity. Because in a world where we do have really, I would call it infinite information, there's a lot of people that are happy to talk. I mean, even this podcast today, like, was I nervous? Yes. But like, I was excited to talk to you. And I think, especially like someone like yourself, I mean, like, it may seem out of reach, but I know a lot of those big guys would love to talk to a guy like you. So, whatever you feel like you have, like, if I give any piece of advice back, like just shoot that DM because like this is a very fun, unique format. You don't really get it at dinner tables. You don't really get it at the coffee shop. And yeah, that's why like people are like, oh, you don't prep your questions. I'm like, no, I know what I'm
We
curious
can
about.
have a conversation. Well, here's what's funny is into what you just said about curiosity. I have a thesis that uh, AI is going to completely shift the playing field from IQ to EQ. And basically, the most successful people in success, like I said earlier, like what is success? But like the advantage goes to the emotionally intelligent and the creatives because AI totally levels the intelligent playing field, right? And so I have this whole thesis on like it's getting to a place like we have, over 50 people in our product and engineering team. And it's like we are getting to a place where AI will ultimately be able to, develop at the same clip, or maybe there's going to be specialists and there's going to be an event and like it'll keep pushing the specialist market line higher and higher. But it's like what's going to happen is it's the people that know how to leverage the AI in ways that are massive unlocks, and it's like that's who's going to win in 5 years from now. And like obviously I'm like going really deep on this whole entire agentic component to like what's happening and like how that will ultimately move into robotics. And like there's all these interesting things, but it's like the most creative people with the most futuristic thoughts, the biggest ideas, are going to basically be able to articulate what their idea is and have something build it for them without needing this entire team. And I just find that really fascinating is like what is that like, is the MIT graduate in 5 years from now at a disadvantage versus the Juilliard, the creative, the what and it's it's one of those things like raw intelligence is raw intelligence, but I do think that there is going to be this shift to the emotionally intelligent are going to win and creatives are going to win.
Yeah, so we do this test like whenever we're hiring editors where it's the same file I give to everyone. Like it's been the same for like 6 months or so. And we give them all of our resources. We're like, here's our, like, you can use my chat GPT, like all this stuff through LastPass. And I literally will just put things in there, like put the craziest overlay you can think of. And I do it really broad like that. And then that is actually something we've started testing for is like sense of humor, like ability to pull references from TV shows because 10 years ago that would be like a copyright issue whereas now it's like no, this is what people need to pay attention.
Yeah, it's so true. I was listening to Sam Altman talk yesterday. I don't know if it was like a TED talk. It was like
He's
someone
always on its that stage.
yeah, it's like if someone just interviewed him. It was really good, and they went really deep into like IP and from a creative perspective of like where should creators and the owners of the IP when should they be getting compensated and what should ChatGPT be able to pull and what shouldn't. And it was an interesting conversation of where that's all going. Like, and once again, these are just the things that I find fascinating. Like some of them, it's a dud and your brain starts going off. But it's like that was a conversation that I found very interesting on like how how this is going to change the world for writers and artists and all these different things. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're in a cool time. Yeah, so I just want to thank you for coming on. Seriously, this was a fun conversation. Maybe we'll do it in the future.
Yeah,
But
man.
for people that don't know, how there's a lot of agents that follow me. Just give us a little 30-second elevator pitch. What is Fellow and how can they get a little test of it?
Yeah, Fellow basically is kind of revolutionized the database. Um, what we find is we have about 50 million contacts synced to our platform, so agents sync their CRM into our platform. And the first thing what we've observed is that less than 20% of those contacts actually have an address attached to them. So we're seeing over 80% of databases are filled with predominantly buyer leads. And so what Fellow does is really kind of three things. It ingests your database and it finds all the homeowners within your database. Then what it does is it starts marketing messaging that would be relevant to a homeowner and it starts automating all this messaging to get your brand in front of them. And then lastly, it provides you all this data that shows you who's converting in your database and who's not. So we send you a daily report of here are all the addresses in your database that went to market, whether with or without you, or sold off market. And so it basically transforms your database into this really valuable asset, which ultimately we're finding agents are reducing down their marketing spends to buy more leads. They're starting to become more listing focused because they're generating more listings out of their database. They're more profitable because they don't have to go spend money marketing because they already have all of this revenue sitting in their database. So Fellow basically is revolutionizing kind of the way that people, our industry and now the mortgage industry are looking at their database.
And where can people maybe get a demo or talk to someone on your team?
Go to Fellow, FELLO.ai.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right, well, Ryan, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, man, this is a treat. Appreciate you.